Hey, this is Noah, and this is the podcast. We're back again with Bryant, Emperor Mateus McClelland. And
I'm living.
he's living. Today I wanted to start talking about a game that me and Bryant are both anticipating quite a bit, Streets of Rage 4. And as a person who has not very much played beat-em-up games in the modern era, and frankly speaking, doesn't care much for them, I can say that I am absolutely looking forward to this with utmost glee.
My been rock solid since that first announcement.
You know? In your opinion, why do you think Streets of Rage 4, by comparison to some of these other beat-em-up games, is becoming such like a exciting thing? Because by comparison to the Battletoads reboot announcement, and especially that one, and the
It's
River City Girls,
happen if
it's
we're
like
comparing it to Battletoads.
fair enough. But in my research about beat 'em up games, the River City Ransom, Battletoads, like all of them seem to be kind of in the same sort of light where it's just this revered game. In my personal opinion, I think River City Ransom is a very cool concept because it's more than just a beat 'em up game. But I'm just wondering if like Streets of Rage was that much more of a hot IP at the time, and in retrospect as well.
I mean, it was kind of a big enough deal to the point where when Streets of Rage 3, or I should say the first two were a big enough deal to the point where when Streets of Rage 3 was a good game, not a great game, people considered it to be the worst game produced for Sega, from Sega for a while.
That's kind of surprising.
Yeah, the biggest complaint that I've read about, because I've been doing a little bit of research into this, was that the guy who did the music didn't do the music in a satisfactory way, according to the majority of the fans. And he said that he just thought he was making what was popular at the time, so they obviously weren't ready for it.
That might make sense why in Streets of Rage 4 with the retro announcement, if I remember correctly, when they were talking about the music that you can play, I think they had said that it was specifically music from Streets of Rage 2.
It's 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
But it's still only the first two games.
And not 3. And I remember that does kind of line up because I was looking at that and I was like, but why? Why is that a thing? And realizing now that they probably didn't include 3 because they're like, let's be honest. You don't want 3, we don't want 3. Let's just move past it. This is Streets of Rage 3 now.
Honestly, like, I don't even see it. Streets of Rage 3 has a boppin' soundtrack. It hits just right for what it is.
Maybe at the time it was a lot less well received, but maybe now we can just kind of take it for what it is. Since at the end of the day, when we look at it now, we're going to see it objectively as this is a retro game. We're not going to be in the same vibe that people were back in the day, so whatever extraneous circumstances caused people to think Streets of Rage 3's music is doggy doo-doo, you know, we're not going to see it, and we're just going to be like, well, it's a good game.
Considering they're spread across three systems, I'd like to point out that the graphical jump between Streets of Rage 1 and 3 is just really something. Even 1 and 2 was weirdly like magical, even though they're just 2D beat 'em up games.
Wait, what systems were those on?
I believe the first one was on the Game Gear, the second one was on the Master Drive, and the third one was on the Genesis.
Huh. I was going to say, because I know Sega had a tendency to release their games on like every... Like, did you know that Ecco the Dolphin, the first game, is on like almost every Sega console besides the Dreamcast?
I actually didn't know that.
You can, like, I thought, I joked around with the idea, I wasn't actually going to do this because I'm not this disabled, but I joked around with the idea of, like, if you had an Ecco the Dolphin complete collection, what would this look like? And so I looked it up. And so what this would entail, in theory, is, assume all of these are complete in box. You would need the US, PAL, and Japan region versions of the Genesis game, the Sega CD game, the Saturn game, the Game Gear game, the Master System game. Like, it is literally on, like, everything, and it's still the same game. It's not like a different version of the game that has, like, a different everything. It's not like a sequel, prequel, quill. It's just Ecco the Dolphin. And it gets even worse when you consider that Ecco 2, Ecco the Tides of Time, is also the same case. So, like, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm wondering if Streets of Rage is in that same category of, like, you could probably get it on everything. And then I'd wonder, the Genesis Classics Collection, it has all the Genesis games. I wonder if there's, like, actually a better version of those games that exists that nobody talks about. I should look into that.
I'm slightly curious, honestly, about it. Because I know that in the Genesis Classics Collection and on the SEGA Genesis Mini is the American releases of the games, which are, well, mostly complete. Streets of Rage 1 and 2 are complete. Streets of Rage 3 has a cut character who's gay, because apparently that's just rude.
I guess.
Well as, I believe, Ash was, not Ash, Ash is the gay character. Adam, the guy who's the police chief in 4, was one of the first 3 playable characters. Was supposed to be playable in one of the other ones, but only in the European, if I remember correctly. Which is strange.
So, hold on. So, upon doing a quick Google search and visiting the Wikipedia article about Streets of Rage, we can identify that Streets of Rage had a proper release on the Genesis, Sega CD, the Game Gear, and the Master System, as well as the 3DS. This is not including any of the things where it's included in, like, the Genesis Classics Collection. That's counted as a separate installment. Streets of Rage 2 is pretty much the same case, where it was on an arcade release, the Genesis, Game Gear, Master System, as well as PSN and the 3DS eShop. But Streets of Rage 3 is interesting because, according to the Wikipedia article, it only lists it as on the Genesis, as a proper release on its own.
Yep.
I get the feeling that the poor reception by comparison to the previous games, maybe that was Sega's indication of maybe we shouldn't just release this on everything. Maybe the other ones did so well that they're like, okay, we can get away with releasing this on everything because every kid's gonna buy the Genesis version, and then they gotta get the Game Gear version, you know, and then we put out the CD one, which is basically the HD remaster. You gotta get that one. But with this one, everyone's just kind of like, you know.
And I honestly think that that's the case, just because this is such a... It's a big franchise, even, like, 20 years on. That's the reason we're getting Streets of Rage 4, but, like, no one cares about 3 other than, I guess, me.
Yeah. I mean, having not played it, I don't have a direct opinion. Maybe I'll do a playthrough of the games recorded and do, like, a highlight reel. That'll be fun. Maybe. I don't know. But with Streets of Rage 4, I think it's interesting that they decided to have the retro characters in the way that they did it, specifically. It's neat that they have the retro visuals, but I feel like there's probably a handful of dedicated Streets of Rage fans who will see their favorite characters not get, like, the pretty, like, new hand-drawn visuals, and they might think, I'm kind of getting cheated here. I appreciate that they're there, but it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of, like, a really good comparison here. It's kind of like if you have your friend really likes Final Fantasy VII, and then you like Resident Evil. Bear with this explanation. Your friend hears about Final Fantasy VII Remake, and they're like, ah! And they're, like, freaking out. And then you get just the Resident Evil HD remaster on the Switch. Like, it's nice, I guess, but it's not what you wanted. Like, at least it's there, but, you know, do you think that's even going to matter? Because, like, I've seen, like, the like-dislike ratio. Nobody's really complaining about it, I don't think.
I don't think anybody will necessarily care about that, but I do have a problem with the way that they've advertised it, because it's every playable character from the older games is back as a sprite. They play like the older games. Like, they have their different movesets and everything from the different games. But one of them, Shiva, is a boss in 3.
Okay.
And he's been confirmed as a boss in 4. But the model that they showed off for him was the Streets of Rage 3.
So he should have one in 4, but they're not using it?
As far as they showed, he only has or playable, he only has the 8-bit. Or actually, 3 was on the Genesis, so 32-bit still.
Maybe... Well, okay, first of all, do you know if they've shown off how he appears in 4?
No, not yet. Just that he's confirmed as a boss in 4.
So maybe that'll be like a thing that you can get later on. Like, they don't want to show that off yet because maybe it'll be like a big reveal, like, oh, here's a big design change or whatever.
Part of me hopes so, because they did a very faithful rendition of the first boss from Streets of Rage 2. He shows up at the end of the last gameplay trailer. He's just leaning against some motorcycles, and he takes off his vest, and then he goes.
Weird. I think the idea of having the retro visuals mixed in with all the other stuff is a neat idea, however. I think I don't think they showed it. Maybe they did. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't remember if they showed off, like, your protagonists as the retro visuals.
They did for Blaze and Axel.
I was gonna say, I was wondering if they were gonna do a weird thing where it's like, okay, it's bad enough that the other character, like the old characters, don't get updated visuals, but if you can't play as the retro versions of your main characters to at least have consistency across the board, that would have really sucked. But you gotta appreciate that they did.
Right. We out here, boys.
Honestly, seeing all that just makes me really want someone to demake Yakuza as Streets of Rage, or as a River City Ransom, especially.
Honestly, that wouldn't be bad at all.
Or
personally, I'm really curious to see how this ends up turning out, because I want it to be proof that Sega can actually use the backlog of games and not, just like, oh, hey, look, another Sonic racing game. Can you feel the sunshine?
Not this time. I hope so too, because I've been quite pleased that, like, Sega's, I think, in a very good position. First, they announced Streets of Rage 4 is a thing in general. Everyone's pretty excited for it, the people who know about it. Humankind looks exciting. Sonic is supposed to get some kind of announcement this year. Shin Megami Tensei 5 still exists, I think. And then Persona 5 R Royal. Persona 5 Royal.
Theoretically, Shin Megami Tensei 5 still exists. They said more news would be coming. That's been a lie so far.
Yeah. And the same thing was for Bayonetta 3. Like, I think at the beginning of the year, what's his face? Who's the guy that does the Bayonetta games? I forget his name.
Oh my god, why did I forget? I can see him in my mind right now. I hate this.
Well, whatever his name is, he had said that we were going to be getting Bayonetta 3 news this year, and I'm like, that's a very vague description. That could translate to getting news on December 31st, and then the game coming out literally at the end of next year, and you're technically not lying.
Hideki Kamiya.
So
some people just know him as Mr. Devil May Cry.
This is true. Anyway, with Sega kind of on a roll here, I love it because I think Sega has more backlogged franchises than Nintendo.
I'd wager very strongly at that.
Like,
Where the is well, actually, I can't say where the is Shining Force because they did that Shining Refrain garbage last year. But where's
had middling
actual
reviews.
Shining Force?
Which it's interesting to me that with Shining Force or Shining Resonance Refrain, whatever it's called, I think when it first released, it was on that's not even a new game, just to be clear. That was originally on like the PSP or the PlayStation Vita. And I think it was either the original release got like moderate reviews, like middling reviews, or this remake or re-release, HD re-release got a middling response. I don't remember which one it was, but it was disappointing. Now, that doesn't make it a bad game. And the same goes for the Panzer Dragoon remake. People have been kind of criticizing it. Even some of the retro YouTubers I watch have been like, it's alright. It's like, if you wanted Panzer Dragoon, but in HD, this is it. But it's not what we were hoping for.
I mean, I don't know what they were hoping for, given that when they announced it, they were like, look, it's exactly the same. It just looks nice this time.
I was gonna
Isn't
say,
that great?
having booted it up on my Switch, like, I bought it the day that it released, and it's an arcade game. Just like it was. And you could probably beat that in a couple hours if you really wanted to. I don't intend to. I just intend to, like, boot it up once in a while when I feel like it and, go at my own pace. Namaste. But I'm hoping, and my hope is wearing thin on it. I hope that the response to this, in spite of it not being super positive, will prompt SEGA to fund remakes of the other Panzer Dragoon games. Because Panzer Dragoon Saga is a great game that deserves to exist on modern platforms in a way that we can play, so that I can actually play the game instead of having to spend $500 on a CD for it. Like, that game is absurd with how much it is. That's more than Earthbound. And that's saying something. Earthbound, at the very least, you have people who are trying to cheat you by, like, making reproduction cartridges and lying. This one, no. It's the real deal, and you gotta deal with it. It's expensive. And I don't like that. If they remade that game in the same way that they did the Panzer Dragoon remake, even, like, with its Xbox 360 vibing graphics, but as long as it was the game, I would pay $60 for that. That's a lie. I'd pay $45. Whatever. But, like, there's so many games that I want to see remade, but I think the priority should be games that, like we were talking about with F-Zero before, like, it should be games that, like, people really like it, but it's not easily accessible anymore. Whether because it's hard to play, or because it's literally not accessible.
That's what I want from Resident Evil. They're remaking Resident Evil 4, supposedly.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, here's the problem with that, okay? Resident Evil 4 has been on every system since 2 generations ago. It launched on the GameCube, was ported to the original Xbox,
and
was
the Wii.
Ported then to the PS2, then the Wii. It's on the Wii U, it's on the Xbox One and the PS4, and just recently was ported to the Switch. You can play it on your phone. Like, people say it's one of the best games ever made. It's on everything. You don't need to remake Resident Evil 4 because it's apparently already perfect. Where the is Code Veronica or Dead Aim? Like, literally anything else.
Or that one that AVGN did the video on.
That would be Dead Aim.
Oh.
Yep. See, no, I went for the deep cut.
See, I was pretty... I'm not even really a Resident Evil fan. I own Resident Evil. I own Revelations 1 and 2 on the Switch. All 3 of those are on the Switch. And I just recently actually got 4. I forgot I have 4 now because I bought that chainsaw controller. That's a whole thing. It'd be cognitive dissonance to play the 4th game on the Switch with that controller. I feel like that would be like heresy.
I mean, that would be the Nintendo existence. Shinji Mikami said he would cut his head off if it ever appeared on the PlayStation 2. It was so perfectly timed. My grandfather just started losing his shit out in the living room.
You know? But with all that in mind, in spite of all that, when I first heard that a lot of the Resident Evil games were coming to Switch, I was like, okay, that's really cool. Because as far to my knowledge, you can play all of the mainline Resident Evil games and the Revelations games on the Switch.
The only exception right now is 2 and 3, and that's because those remakes will probably not run on the Switch.
I'm not talking about the remakes, though. I'm just talking about the game being ported. I believe 2 and 3 are ported to the Switch, although I could be wrong.
You might be wrong, at least as far as I know. I might be wrong. Egg on my face. They might just have, like, shat out the PS1, 2, and 3 versions on the Switch and been like, you take this. Have fun. See what happens.
Let me check real quick to see if it's a thing.
It should be, honestly, because people have mentioned how, like, Resident Evil 3 is kind of like Resident Evil 1's remake, where, like, yeah, okay, it's really nice. It's a good game. It's a short game. Why the f*** would you ever go back and play Resident Evil 3 now?
Oh, shoot. It actually isn't. So, it's on the Dreamcast, the GameCube, N64. It's on the N64?
Yeah.
The PC, and the PlayStation. So, hold on. If it's on PC... No, what I'm talking about two different things now. My brain's all over the place. But, yeah, so... The remake of Resident Evil that appeared on the GameCube is in the same vein as the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. But the difference is that because those are so modern, it's probably not going to happen on the Switch. That's a mood. Well, that's unfortunate. My condolences to the Resident Evil fans who stuck on the Switch.
Yeah, honestly.
It do be like that sometimes. At any rate, speaking of modern games, okay? I don't know if I told you, but I did manage to get into the Valorant beta.
You did, and Jonah also did.
Jonah did not. He played a game on my account.
No, don't get it twisted. Jonah told me that you got into the
Valorant.
beta.
Okay. Thank you. American English. But it has been a time, and I've been enjoying it, but I gotta say that the presentation on the game is lackluster at best. And it's a double-edged sword because simultaneously I look at the presentation, I'm like, and I've got plenty good of a computer to run that game. That game is designed to run on Riot Games standard of peanut computer. I would wager an amount of money that your computer could probably attempt to run the game. But the visual quality is still like, yeah. Like, one of the things that stuck out to me, and when I put this together, I'll probably actually clip in footage of it. When you load up in Overwatch at the character select screen, the characters will have like their weird just idle animation, right? That just kind of loops. They don't have that in this. Right. It's just a static PNG, a JPEG of the character. And I'm so used to Overwatch that there are brief moments where my brain like has a short and I think the character is moving, Mona Lisa style. And it really bugs me. I don't know, like, don't get me wrong, the visual fidelity can eat my shorts because I'm used to games looking like garbage, but for some reason with this game, it's bugging me, and I don't know why. Have you actually watched any footage of the game?
I watched Critical for like 30 seconds, and then I was
I didn't even realize Critical was playing it.
He's like streamed it 3 or 4 times this week.
One of the streamer I see streaming it the most is Pokimane, and like her viewership is always at least at like 100K, and I'm like, that's nice. But then when I clicked on her stream when I was first trying to get my key, bro, she's not even playing the game. She's eating like a salad and has video of the game playing.
Yeah, isn't that a really, really nice workaround?
I think that's cheating.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
It's also called mukbang.
next time, Bryant, when you go to stream, just take one of your old streams and just play it. And just, like, eat a taco, please. The whole stream. Just, like, take one of your 10-hour streams and just, like, do the orange justice on camera over it. Make it happen. I want it on my desk by tomorrow.
We'll have to.
Anyhow, I know you wanted to talk about the MCU.
Dude,
So,
it's happening.
what's on your mind?
Sam Raimi's coming back to comic book movies. Like, this is the only good announcement to come out of Marvel in 6 months.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm slightly uninitiated with names. Sam Raimi is the guy who did the original Spider-Man trilogy, correct?
Yes. He also did the Evil Dead movies, but no one really talks about those anymore.
A lot of people don't talk about Sam Raimi anymore, apparently, because I don't know him off the top of my head.
Right.
But which movie is he being attached to again?
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which is, let me just articulate the roller coaster of events that has happened with this movie.
Okay.
Scott Derrickson said that you will need to watch WandaVision for backstory because Wanda's going to be one of the main characters in that movie, and that's whatever, but fine.
Weird.
Kevin Feige announces that Scott Derrickson will be allowed to do whatever he wants with the movie, and that is immediately made a lie because Scott Derrickson ends up quitting the movie after he says it's going to be a horror movie, and then Kevin Feige says it's not.
I'm assuming that a lot of people got disappointed by that, because honestly, that sounds like a neat idea.
Honestly, yeah. Then, Kevin Feige announced that Scott Derrickson was no longer directing the movie, but he was going to stay on as producer. And then they hired Sam Raimi, who's famous for 2 things: making horror movies and Spider-Man. So riddle me this. Is it a horror movie or not?
I feel like we're basically going to get an experience akin to, like, if you take Pulp Fiction and put it through a filter that looks like that psychedelic sequence in Doctor Strange and combine it with the corniness of the original Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're going to be looking at. I wonder if they're going to still retain the idea of having to watch WandaVision to prepare to watch that movie. Because that was the old guy that said that, right?
Yeah.
Because I was really intrigued at the idea of that, because it got me thinking about that show. Because, like, you hear the premise of... Yeah, you don't even hear the premise. You hear, like, the name of the Doctor Strange movie, and you hear that Wanda Maximoff is going to be involved, and you think about what WandaVision's going to be about, you're like... Your brain starts devising these conspiracies of, like, what are these going to be about? And I can't even, like, list off all of the ideas in my brain, but it sounds so cool, and I'd be so disappointed if they retracted that just because that one dude was just like, I want to make an actual horror movie. I'd hope they maybe reassign that dude to another film to do. Maybe the Venom 2.
You know, the really disappointing part about that is that Doctor Strange, the first one, not a good movie, but it was very obviously a Scott Derrickson movie. The entire back half of that movie is, like, pretty good, but, like, regardless, like, it was very obviously the work of that director, which you cannot say about most of the MCU movies.
I was gonna say. I feel.
Oh,
What?
go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, wasn't really gonna be like divulging any further than that.
I was just gonna say, like, it's a really unique, like, ability to craft something. If even with them, filtering out the color in your movie and all the grayscale and all that, you still make something that is wholly unique.
Yeah. Which honestly, I think Jonah was watching a video critiquing, the Rise of Skywalker, and it was comparing it heavily to Avengers Endgame, because it was like they were trying to suggest that whoever was making The Rise of Skywalker was basically just trying to make Endgame for Star Wars, but doing it very piss poorly.
That's most certainly how it came off, I'm not even gonna lie.
Like, specific comparisons were drawn to the scene in The Rise of Skywalker when, like, they're all like, we're gonna lose! And then black guy shows up. And they're like, oh, you know what that part's like? That's like when Captain America is like, oh, we're gonna lose, but I'm still gonna walk. I'm still gonna do it. Unlike Poe Dameron. And then black guy shows up. 2 black guys. You know?
Don't forget, The Rise of Skywalker, okay? Black guy and his black girlfriend who has the same backstory.
Yes. But one of the things was this idea that, like, and everyone, I think, agrees on this, maybe not, that Palpatine should not have been there whatsoever.
Bro.
And the magnitude of his return in that film was weak as hell, on the grounds that Thanos had, like, a setup, right? He had the setup of being in at least one other film in the immediate past, and the crap that he did set him up. And this is disregarding how interesting he is of a character, but when you set up a dude of that magnitude, what happens in Endgame feels that much more. Palpatine died, and then 2 movies later he was not dead. And that's the setup. They set him up in a title crawl. By comparison to, like...
Speak.
Yeah, like... that... If you want that to have the same magnitude, if you are expecting that to have the same impact as Thanos literally murdering comic book heroes that we have seen over the past, like, 20 years... Friend, you are sorely mistaken.
Well, you're also discounting that Thanos appeared earlier than Infinity War. Infinity War was his finally them actually doing something with that scene from the end of Avengers where he goes, or not the end of Avengers, Thor 2 The Dark World. I remember because it was 2.5 hours of depression in a movie theater that I didn't want to go see anyway. When he grabs the Infinity Gauntlet out of the vault, he goes, I'll handle it myself. That was 10 years ago. Before that, the scene of him floating out on a meteor on his throne, looking back at the camera from the corner of his eye. Thanos has been in the MCU for as long as the first Avengers movie has been out. Like, there was a clear build-up where the story was going. They were headed to Thanos 120%. They didn't, for 2 movies, know what the direction of the trilogy was. They let 3 different directors handle it and then fired the third and dropped JJ back in the hot seat. And he lied when he said he wasn't going to walk back the last movie. Because 2/3 of The Rise of Skywalker is, oh yeah, remember that thing that happened in The Last Jedi? It didn't happen.
See, I think it's interesting too because the way they did it in the MCU, as I think about it now, is it was such a steady build-up because the aspect of Thanos. First of all, I think for me anyway, to begin with, I didn't watch a lot of the post-credit scenes until more recent years, But upon seeing them at first, I kind of just was like, oh, that's neat. Nothing ever crossed my mind of like, oh, this is going to be important. This is going to have value to it, and I need to see this, and I need to remember this for the next time I go to see a film, because this is going to be relevant at some point. But the realization that they were setting that up for as long as they were, and the thing with the... Think about how long it took for them to get around to involving just the first Infinity Stone. Okay?
Which was technically the first Avengers movie.
Like, the build-up that it took for them to do the Avengers movie was that. But even then, I don't think they directly called out the Infinity Stone.
No, what they did was they renamed the Cosmic Cube to the Tesseract, which is a completely different object in the comics, I'd like to make you aware.
Right.
And they didn't even hint that the Infinity Stone was inside of it.
Yeah. Now, on that train of thought, they slowly started making it that, like, the Infinity Stones were, like, more and more important as time went on, to the point where you're like, oh, so this is becoming, like, a recurring theme. I think the first time that, like, it hit me about the Infinity Stones, of it being important, was in Guardians of the Galaxy, with the Power Stone. And I think they did it on purpose.
Because you mentioned how you slowly become like accustomed to using or watching the post-credit scenes and realizing that they're important. Guardians of the Galaxy has one that they've never followed up on, and to my knowledge, probably never will.
You're talking about Howard the Duck?
No, I'm talking about at the end of the first movie when they're like, oh, look at your genes, man. You're so different. We don't know what you are. Us, the Nova Corps. Where the f*** is Richard Rider?
I don't remember this one.
Yeah.
Maybe that means we're actually going to get a Nova in one of the movies. Is that what that's in reference to?
Yeah, because Nova, the superhero, is the member of the Nova Corps who works in the sector that Earth is in. Think like the Green Lanterns, but with less involved.
Right.
I say that having a love-hate relationship with the Green Lanterns.
Honestly, like, can you imagine a world where, like, Captain Marvel wasn't a thing, and instead we got Nova?
It would be a better world. Richard Rider is a decent character.
Like,
so, like, Captain Marvel is a character in the comics because she's never been written properly. Captain Marvel in the movies is a character because she doesn't have a character. And I hate that because I like Captain Marvel, the movie.
You know, I've tried to tout this idea that Captain Marvel is sort of a throwback movie for me. Because the idea of the movie, first of all, I hated the idea that I first thought that I had to watch that movie for preparation for Endgame. I absolutely did not. Not on any level.
They literally, it was just for her to have a backstory instead of just showing up, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just insulting.
But, like, when I think about it, a lot of the backstory movies, like the movies that set up a character, a hero, those were back in the 2000s, and I remember watching that movie. I don't remember if I was with you or if I was with Danny. I was with somebody. And I remember watching that movie, and I think to myself, like, wow, this actually really feels like one of those movies. Like, if you had shown this to me before the original Avengers movie, I probably would have thought, oh, wow, how did I miss this one?
Well,
I wouldn't think, like, oh, this is from, like, way in the future. This feels right.
In fairness, it was, according to them, intentionally put together to be to fit in Phase 1 as a perfect, like, this just goes here, even though nobody's going to watch that during Phase 1, being realistic.
Yeah.
So it literally goes in with the other origin movies of Iron Man 1 and Captain America. Thor, I haven't seen the first Thor movie. I don't know if that's just backstory or not. I'm never going to watch the first Thor movie. It has so many Dutch angles, it hurts me.
I just think it's funny that you've watched Dark World, but not that one, because that one's objectively better than Dark World.
That's not saying much.
I know it's not. But the point is, you suffered through one. Technically, if your expectations are as low as Dark World, you should watch the first one. You'd be like, well, this is a masterpiece.
Bro.
I mean, you've seen Ragnarok, right?
Yeah, of course.
Well, then never mind. Because that's the only good Thor movie.
That's not...
Actually, Infinity War is the best
much.
Thor movie. That's the best one.
I mean, I don't know. I think Ragnarok's probably the best of the actual Thor movies. Infinity War is easily the best movie that Thor is in. We don't have a proper Thor movie, period. There's no Beta Ray Bill. He doesn't lose... Well, he loses the hammer in Ragnarok, but like it doesn't mean anything. None of the Norse pantheon are around. It's just Odin, Loki, and Thor, and his goon squad, which all basically died. Yeah, I think because most of them were on Asgard
Hela
too.
just murdered all of them, even the Asian dude.
Yeah.
I missed the Asian dude.
Hogun. Yeah.
That's my boy. I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
I'm just saying, like they had the entire Thor mythos to work with when they made those 3 movies. Taika Waititi did great. He had to make an Infinity War movie that wasn't an Infinity War movie. But the first 2 are completely unforgiven. They made his main villain a dude whose plan boiled down to big laser in the sky. And put the sludge inside the white woman, then take the sludge out of the white woman.
I don't think he wanted to put it there, but he certainly did do the latter half.
Yeah.
Which, let's just acknowledge for 2 seconds, okay? Think about that entire movie. Think about everything that happens in the movie, if you can even remotely remember what happened, because Thor certainly can't. All of that was negated by Rocket Raccoon, who did their job in a matter of a scene in a 3-hour film. Literally one scene.
The only scene of consequence that happens in that movie is when Thor's mom dies. And even then, before Infinity War, give me one line from Thor's mom. Because you can remember what she said in Infinity War, I guarantee you.
Actually, I remember eat a salad.
Eat a salad is good enough, but the big one is being a hero is not being good at who you're supposed to be. It's being good at who you are.
Oh yeah. And then Thor decides to be a degenerate.
Yeah. So she's an actual character in the Infinity War pair of movies because I would say it's one movie, but whatever. In Endgame, she's a character. In the 2 movies she exists in, one of which uses her death as an emotional plot point, she is not. Where the is Beta Ray Bill? We got
just immediate one from 1 to 1, just like, and now we've crossed that bridge. Next question.
Where's Beta Ray Bill? I'm just saying they had a Disney Plus schedule for Captain America and the White Wolf. I'm not going to call it by its slave name.
It's
WandaVision, Loki, and Hawkeye. Where the is my Beta Ray Bill Disney Plus TV show?
Honestly, you're complaining about that. I'm angry that the Ghost Rider TV show got canceled.
Dude, Robbie Reyes' Ghost Rider was gay. Bring back Johnny Blaze.
Well, either way, like a Ghost Rider TV show in general is something I wanted, because while we can criticize the Nicolas Cage films literally every day that we are alive on this earth,
and by God, I will.
We can do that all the time, but we have to acknowledge that there is potential for a great film underneath all of the Nicolas Cage.
Honestly, the best parts of the first film are the horror movie bits.
Like, when I heard that there was going to be a TV show, even though it was going to be based on Robbie Reyes, specifically from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I was like, sign me up. Sounds great. And you may remember their whole design document of like, we're going to make a bunch of these like supernatural TV shows, these horror themed TV shows and all that. It was going to be this whole thing. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be so cool. And then they hit me with, by the way, the first one we had planned, the Ghost Rider one, the one that you obviously wanted more than all the other ones because they're all other characters that you don't even know about. Yeah, it's canceled.
So here's the thing about that, okay? Because this is why this doesn't work out perfectly. You take Robbie Reyes' Ghost Rider, okay, you establish Hell. From Hell, you can move into Damien Hellstrom, the son of Satan, and how he wants to be a superhero, but his son is literally the devil. And, you know, have that whole deal. Then you have, you know, the biblical angels helping him. The devil is his main antagonist. Okay, we flesh out Hell more. Next up in that list was, oh my god, I can't remember her name now. Redhead Guns Trenchcoat.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. The one that's like basically Lara Croft.
Yeah, maybe.
No, Sin. Is that what you're talking about?
No. You're thinking of the Red Skull's daughter. You went too deep.
Okay. God. She had the ponytail?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's basically Lara Croft.
Yeah.
Like to one. She got some like ridiculous name. What is it?
Elsa Bloodstone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, Elsa Bloodstone having her own TV show would have been literally perfect because you know what's confirmed for Phase 5? Blade. Her and Blade were Night Stalkers, man. She was literally one of the Night Stalkers.
Dude, we could have lived in a universe where both Ghost Rider and Blade would have had TV shows, two movies that were in the 2000s and were perfect examples of the early superhero movies that sucked.
Bro, Cottonmouth is Blade, and I'm still erect.
Like, I'm really concerned that like is gonna make. Oh, sorry, I can't say that word on YouTube because that's a demonetization. Thank you.
Yeah, the C virus from Resident Evil 6.
Right.
The Chinese. Oh my god. No.
What?
Quick maths. Okay, Resident Evil 6 launched in like 2009. Part of it takes place in China. They unleashed the C virus. It's just the Chinese virus. I didn't think about that.
Jonah, what was the nickname for that was really funny? It was
Kung
like
Flu.
What?
Kung Flu.
Kung Flu.
Right. That's Resident Evil 6. Oh my god. Is it Resident Evil 6 has zombies that are just Chinese dudes with swords doing kung fu.
So it's the ending of Tomb Raider. Excellent.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
going back to the MCU, I'm really worried that the already far off movies are now going to be pushed back because, you know, at the beginning of the year, I was like, man, I'm going to have to wait till effing May to watch Black Widow. And even then, that's like the only movie.
Black Widow.
That's like the only movie this year, I think. And then I gotta wait for all the ones I actually want to watch. Lord knows when Blade's gonna come out. That's probably still on the table for being canceled, if we're being honest.
Well, Blade's confirmed for this next set of movies.
Yeah,
so he's still good because they haven't canceled any of those.
But
they dropped
with this next set of movies, let me just remind you that like in the past few years, we've pretty much only gotten about 2 MCU films per year. Ish.
Right, but they've done this whole like here's the schedule thing before. We knew all of this last phase minus Endgame, and that's the only reason they announced everyone except for Endgame is because they wanted to
surprise.
Yeah, and it was literally just because they didn't want people to know the title because, you know, keep people talking.
I mean, there had been the rumors about Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2, but I thought I feel like they did this on purpose because there was the rumors that was going to be a thing, that there was going to be a 2-part film, but then at one point when they announced the name of the film, it was just Infinity War. They didn't call it Part 1 or Part 2, so I think I and a lot of other people, maybe even you, assumed, oh, so they just scrapped the 2-part thing and made it one film. Okay. You know.
I had kind of hoped that they were going to do that, but even then, once Infinity War ended, my one hope against hope was that they were not going to name the movie Avengers Assemble, and they didn't.
I'm glad that they didn't, because if they had,
that would have been the stupidest thing in the world.
That would have ruined Captain America's moment at the end. Which, I know it's beating a dead horse. Joke, haha, dead. But I think genuinely, the moment when Captain America finally actually said Avengers Assemble is truly one of the most powerful moments I've seen in a movie. And I always thought it was funny, because this is what they do to you. This is their game. They do all these little things before. Like, I didn't really think about the idea of, like, they kept wanting to say Avengers Assemble, but they never did it. And then, like, in Age of Ultron, or was it Civil War? One of those. I think it was Age of Ultron. Captain America wanted to do it at the end, and then he didn't. And it was funny. Like, it was funny. It was like, oh, haha. No. Them's was setting up for that garbage.
You know, here's the thing that really got me about that, too. I'm gonna be that guy. Thor is the god of thunder. He casts lightning. It makes no sense, but that's just how it is. And that's fine. But he gets that power because he's a god. Lifting Mjolnir does not give him the ability to wield lightning. It shouldn't have given Captain America the ability to wield lightning. In the comic that they took that from, Fear itself, the panel where he holds up Mjolnir and says Avengers Assemble has lightning striking the hammer because they're fighting in the middle of a thunderstorm.
I see.
Like, it's a dramatic effect thing. It's not Captain America is suddenly the god of thunder, even though that actually wouldn't be terrible, I think.
See, that... I think it's even acknowledged in the films, too, because when Thor in Thor Ragnarok was first, like, having his whole issue of, I don't have my hammer. If I remember correctly, the whole thing was like, you're the god of thunder, not the god of hammers.
Yes.
The idea
Why do you
was
remember
Odin,
that, but not his mom's line, you piece of shit.
because I liked Thor Ragnarok, suck it. Anyway, I remember that because that's a relevant point, because it almost is as if Odin is trying to tell him, the hammer is not the source of your power, it is merely the ability to channel it.
Yeah.
Now, contradictory to that, Odin's, like, speech to, you know, curse the hammer or whatever you call it, enchant the hammer, was, anyone, be he worthy or whatever, should he lift the hammer, shall possess the power of Thor. The power of Thor. If Thor's power is of lightning, not the hammer of lightning, then that makes sense. That explanation makes sense. Not the other way around. You vibe with it?
Right. It's just something that bugged me, especially because, like, man, Fear itself wasn't even that great. Taking that moment, putting it in a better story, you got me. But you have to understand what was happening there before you do it.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think at the end of the day, it works better to let him have it, though.
Yeah, but
it's more dramatic.
Here's my thing. The reason why Avengers Assemble worked was because they built up to it. It was always a thing that was going to happen. They didn't take the prime moment that they had to make a thing and waste it.
Yeah.
What they did ruin, what they did waste, was Captain America lifting the hammer. Specifically the scene in Age of Ultron where everybody tries their hand at it, and you can tell that Captain America moved it just a bit if you're paying enough attention, and more specifically when Vision lifts the hammer. Captain America lifting that hammer doesn't mean the moment Vision picks it up.
I mean, in my personal opinion, when I see that scene, that just raises more questions for me. What that makes me wonder is, what allows Vision to lift it? Is it that he is a pure character?
Yes. That's solely it. You cannot lift Mjolnir if you're a bad person in the MCU, and that's worded very specifically because it was revealed recently in Jason Aaron's run of Thor that is not the case. It is the sheer level of your belief.
So hypothetically, if you just are that devout to being a bad person, you could do it?
Yeah, if you believe wholeheartedly that you are correct, unflinchingly, then you can do it. The biggest example is when Magneto got the hammer in Ultimatum. His kids had been killed by Doctor Doom, and his response was, "F it, everybody dies." And he used his magnetism to pull the hammer to him, but the big moment was when he actually was still able to hold the hammer because he very genuinely believed that he was correct in saying humanity needed to go.
It's kind of nuts. See, what I don't know anything about movies, I don't know anything about writing, but I think it's kind of interesting that, like, they took a lighthearted concept of just the phrase Avengers Assemble. And they joked about it in, like, those other things, and in my opinion, I thought it was just like, oh, it's cute, it's whatever, it's funny. But I think the moment when Avengers and the MCU turned serious with Infinity War and Endgame, like, once it all hit that peak, suddenly those serious moments turned into, like, or suddenly those goofy moments turned into things that you have to latch onto as, like, the viewer. You're like, I gotta remember what it was like before, where it was like, Avengers Assemble, it used to be like this, it's funny, but now it's like, okay, this is, all my friends are dead, help, someone get me out of here. Like, I don't even know exactly what I am trying to articulate with this statement, because I'm just kind of flying off the seat of my pants, but I think something about the setting that Endgame has you in takes all those things that you're like, I understand what's going on here, that was good, that was a funny little reference, and suddenly it becomes very important.
Yeah.
And it does that with everything, whether it's because of the plot setup or just those little things, like Cap almost lifting the hammer, or just the Avengers Assemble thing, or all the little things. There was even a weird thing to almost end on, because I've only got about 2 minutes left here. Someone highlighted when Ant-Man and the Wasp reunite. Wasp responds to his call by saying, "We're on it, Cap," because she made fun of Ant-Man in Ant-Man and the Wasp for referring to him as Cap. Because it's like, oh, I guess you guys are buddy-buddy now, huh? And, like, they cut each other a look, Ant-Man and the Wasp, during Endgame, when she says that. But they don't say anything about it, and they move on. And I'm like, people are ripping this movie apart for every little thing. And I'm like, I don't even know if that was an intentional thing. But, like, I can't help but think that it is.
Oh, very much so. I guarantee you it was. Because that's what the MCU has to be now. They established with Infinity War that Chekhov's gun was not a concept they were using for one movie anymore. It was Chekhov's gun for the entire MCU. They did 19 films worth of callbacks in Infinity War. If they didn't keep the buck going at least for Endgame, that movie would have fallen way flatter than it ever should have.
I suppose that's fair. But anyway, thank you for tuning in to the This Is the podcast. I'm Noah. This is Noah. That is Bryant.
This is your boy.
This is me. This is you. This is we. Bye.